Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's session. We're very excited to be here and to have you with us. Um, we will start in about 30 seconds, just allowing people to trickle in as they are running from other meetings. But thank you for joining us. Mary, those are beautiful flowers.
Oh, thank you. The two lilies are fresh, the rest are artificials.
Well, they
Just
all
for
look beautiful.
decorative purpose. Uh-huh.
Well, before we get started, Marie, I have to publicly thank you for my beautiful arrangement. My mom ordered flowers from you for, I was doing a keynote and she
Yes.
couldn't be there. So she called Anna and Anna said, "Oh, you have to call Blooms by Marie." And I got this beautiful, beautiful. And I said to myself, I wonder if this is Miss Marie's. And then I saw it was the most beautiful
Oh,
arrangement. Thank you so much. It made my day.
you're so welcome.
And I sent
That's
a
right.
picture
You
to my mom.
delivered it up there.
Yeah. I
They're
sent a
still
picture to
fresh,
my,
I hope.
yes,
Okay,
yes,
good.
yes.
Yeah, cut them
All
again.
right.
It's been
Uh,
about 7 days.
Yeah. Yep. Just past 7 days.
Flowers are so uplifting. I think they're wonderful. All right, so let's
And
go ahead and get
sweet.
started. We want to make sure that we take advantage of time and honor the presence of all who have joined us today. Let's go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. My name is Daniel Pasco Aguilar. I'm founding director of the Center for Social Justice and Chief Diversity Officer at Excelsior University. We are thrilled to have you with us today. Excelsior University's leadership, the Center for Social Justice, and the Race and Ethnicity Rope Team welcome you to Excelsior's celebration of this year's Black History Month with today's Celebrating Black Entrepreneurship in Our Community panel. For those of you who might not be acquainted with Excelsior's rope teams, we have 11 and soon we'll have 16 communities we call rope teams that we describe as representation and support villages around our students and community members based on the dimensions of identity that matter to them and to allies. If you want to learn more about our rope teams or how to engage with them, you can visit them at communities.excelsior.edu, or you can contact the Center for Social Justice for more information. Before we introduce today's moderator and panelists, I want to thank a number of people and units that made today's event possible, starting with Maria and Courtney from marketing, Erin, Stacy, Jason, and Connor from communications, Jamie and Mackenzie from development, our president and cabinet, Jill and Lori from the president's office. Thank you so much for your amazing partnership and support. As a matter of logistics, we will have time for a Q&A session after today's panel conversation. So please input your questions or comments in our webinar's Q&A space for us to address them. Don't wait till the end. When you think them, write them down, and we'll have them ready. And we have very special guests with us today. The moderator of today's panel is Tamika Good Otis, founder and CEO of Cabot Consulting Group, Santarvis Brown, management and leadership faculty for Excelsior University School of Business, Marie Campbell, owner and floral designer of Blooms by Marie, and you have a little taste right behind her of her work. Starletta Renee, CEO of the YWCA of the Greater Capital Region. Renelle Turner, owner of Nelly Streets. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. Tamika, Santarvis, Marie, Star, and Renelle, we are thrilled and truly honored to have you with us today. It's a treat. And before we allow each of you to introduce yourself, though, I have the pleasure of introducing the moderator of today's panel. Tamika Good Otis is a founder and CEO of Cabot Consulting Group, where she leads trauma-informed leadership and entrepreneurship initiatives focused on resilience, healing, and sustainable growth. Through Cabot's Trauma and Entrepreneurship series, Tamika helps founders understand how lived experience, systemic barriers, and trauma intersect with business, and how healing-centered strategies can unlock clarity, capacity, and long-term success. Previously, through her work with Jumpstart, Tamika managed regional collaborations of small business support organizations across upstate New York, helping minority and women-led business start, scale, and expand. Her work sits at the intersection of equity, entrepreneurship, and human-centered economic development. Thank you for your leadership, inspiration, and participation in today's panel. Tamika, Santarvis, Marie, Star, and Renelle, welcome to Excelsior University and happy Black History Month. Tamika will kick us off with a few words about Black entrepreneurship before we begin our discussion. So thank you, Tamika. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you for that warm introduction. Thank you to our panelists. I'm really excited to be here with you all today. So good afternoon. And thank you to everyone for being here. Today, we're talking about Black entrepreneurship in the United States, but not just from a lens of challenge. We're talking about resilience, innovation, faith, creativity, reinvention, and community. Black entrepreneurship has always existed, even when the systems weren't built for it. In 2022 alone, there were nearly 195,000 Black-owned businesses in this country. Together, they generated more than $211 billion in revenue and supported over 1.3 million jobs. That is not marginal. That is movement. And yet, we know the playing field has never really been level. On average, Black entrepreneurs start their businesses with about $35,000 in capital compared to $100,000 for white entrepreneurs. Black business owners are denied credit at nearly twice the rate. So when we talk about Black entrepreneurship, we are not just talking about startups. We're talking about builders. We're talking about visionaries who create jobs and circulate dollars locally, often with fewer resources. We're talking about small businesses that stabilize neighborhoods, shape culture, and stimulate the local economy in powerful ways. And here's something we don't talk about enough, particularly in our communities: trauma. Historical trauma, financial, workplace, relational. Trauma doesn't just live in our bodies, it shows up in how we price our services, how we negotiate, and how we overwork, how we hesitate to take risk, how we struggle to delegate, and how we avoid rest, and especially in how we build from survival instead of strategy. But here's the reframe. When acknowledged and integrated, lived experience becomes resilience. It becomes emotional intelligence, adaptability, innovation, and it becomes the ability to pivot when the world shuts down. The potential is extraordinary. If Black-owned businesses simply reached revenue parity with their industries, the projected gains could approach $200 billion and nearly 1 million new jobs. Imagine what that would mean for local communities, for generational stability, for expanded opportunity. But supporting entrepreneurship is not just the job of the entrepreneur. It's consumers choosing where to spend their dollars, institutions choosing who they contract with, nonprofits building support models beyond grants, universities creating pipelines, communities mentoring the next generation, and leaders being willing to confront systems while building solutions. Today, we're hearing from leaders who represent different parts of that ecosystem: academia, nonprofit innovation, and small business ownership. My hope today is that you leave not only inspired, but activated, because resilience is not accidental, it is cultivated, and so is community. So today we have 4 amazing leaders here to talk about their journeys. And for the sake of time, I'm not going to read their bios, but as we get started, I'd like to hear from each of you. If you could introduce yourselves in 2 minutes or less, because we have a little bit of time today. If you could introduce yourselves, tell us about your business or the organization you represent and why this topic is important to you. And I see Dr. Brown right next to me on my screen. So if we can start with you, Dr. Brown, thank you.
You would call the professor first, right? Okay.
Yes,
Well, first of all, let me express my appreciation to Daniel and the center to be here, and to the rest of the panelists. I consider myself small next to some of you, so I'm grateful to be here today. So a little bit about me. I have the best of both worlds, academia and an entrepreneur. Most recently, I acquired a company. I bought, as you know, in the current culture and climate that we're living in now, there are a lot of books that are banned where students cannot read. So I bought a bookstore called the Banned Bookshop. It's an online bookstore that specializes in all of those books. And I've done private consulting as an entrepreneur before. So I am happy to be here today to kind of give some insights from both sides of my head, the academia and the practitioner. Um, I have graduate degrees in business, law, and education, and has been a professor over 20 years, been here at Excelsior School of Business for the past 3 years. So very, very excited to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you. And Star, you're next on my screen.
Oh, good afternoon. My name is Starlita Renee Washington, and I am a leader that is shaped by lived experience and driven by purpose. YWCA exists to eliminate racism and empower women. The mission is not symbolic for us, it's operational. At YWCA of the Greater Capital Region, we provide supportive housing to women and families who have experienced homelessness, domestic violence, economic instability, and trauma. We don't just provide a bed, we provide case management, advocacy, connection to mental health care, workforce development, food insecurity programs, and pathways to long-term stability. We are often the place women land when everything else has fallen apart. And we are also the place that they begin that again. This work means so much to me because it is definitely personal for me. I understand what instability feels like. I understand what it means to carry responsibility early. And I understand how systems can either protect you or overwork you. So when I lead YWCA, I'm not just managing programs, I am building safety, I am building structure, and I'm building something that I wish more women had access to sooner: dignity, clarity, and real opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Raynell, you're next on my screen.
Well, hello, and thank you for inviting me. I am very excited to be a part of this opportunity. So my full name is Raynell Turner. Many know me as Nellie. I'm the owner of Nellie's Treats Boutique Bakery. I've been open for about 5 years now. I originally started, I just simply love to bake. I wanted to bake all the goods and I wanted to share my artistic skill to be able to do that. As I started baking, I realized that I wanted to educate our youth on a life skill of baking. We all need to know how to operate in the kitchen, and it's a life skill. So I really decided to really focus on that. And so I teach baking classes throughout the Capital District. And I continue to do so. And I really just want to be an inspiration and motivational for those around us.
Excellent. Thank you. And last but certainly not least, Marie.
Oh, good afternoon, and thank you again for the invitation. I'm honored. So I moved here when I was 14. I lived in Albany. I moved from Jamaica, I should say. I was born there, raised there till 14. I came here. Lived in Albany for 45 years. I just gave my age away. Went to school here, went to college here, went to high school here. And flowers have always been my passion. I love flowers. Growing up, my dad always mandated us to have a garden. And so being in the Caribbean, a garden was a must. Then I was a nurse for 35 years. I worked bedside for 30 years, and then I went into management. Corporate was not my thing. I love work. You see, I had problems with the computer. I love working with people. I love to service others. And then one day I did a fundraising for my son's school. So Marlon, that was there, was at a private school in Albany, and Michael was at a public school. And it was just two different worlds. And while I'm sitting on committees in a private folks were just, oh, the kids were so running around and unorganized. I'd like to donate, $5,000 for a bouncy bounce. And I'm sitting there saying, really? And then Jimmy would like, oh yeah, I'm going to match that, Tom. And next thing you know, we had a room of 20,000 for a bouncy bounce. And I'm looking around like, Albany High, we hardly have snacks for the basketball players, and what's going on? So, and so I approached the coach and I said, not because it's public, it doesn't mean parents can't get together, organize, because I come from a culture that's what we do and we make it happen. So I came up with this idea because when I was in Albany High myself, we used to have a flower sale, coronations. And so I said to Coach Brown, what if I organize a Valentine under one condition? I will give you all the time I have, but that money's to use for those young men, I should say, to visit college campuses for higher education. And he said yes. So I went in, set up, and it was like, oh my God, I'm really designing these. They look beautiful, and we were sold out. They made quite a lot of, well, a lot of money can be in anything, but they made enough where the trip, they had the trip, and I realized that this was a talent, this was a blessing. And so I decided to take out my flower shop, and that was it. And then I left nursing. I retired out of it.
Thank you so much. Well, many of us are glad that you did, because you make beautiful flower arrangements that we see all over the Capitol region. So let's jump in. We don't have a lot of time today, but we're going to try and get to as much as we can and make sure that we have some time for Q&A after. Dr. Brown, I'm so glad that you mentioned your business, that it sounds like you created to solve a problem or fill a gap. And so the first question that I have is for each of the panelists. It's often said that business owners are creating a solution or filling a gap or solving a problem when they decide to start their businesses or take on a specific type of work. For each of you, what problem were you trying to solve when you began your business or took on your work? And I'll start with Star. You're still on mute.
Sorry. When I stepped into this work, the problem wasn't abstract. It had names, it had faces, children sleeping in cars, women surviving domestic violence. But still stuck out was what still stuck out to me was stable housing. The problem wasn't the systems. The problem was that the system was designed to manage poverty, but not to end it, to respond to crisis, but not to prevent it. And too often the women most impacted, especially Black women, were treated like statistics instead of leaders of their own lives. I wasn't trying to create something flashy. But I was trying to create safety, stability, and dignity. At YWCA, the Greater Capital Region, our mission is to eliminate racism and empower women. That's not branding, that's our work daily. The problem that I'm still trying to solve is this. How do we build structures that actually allow women and families to heal, grow, and thrive instead of just survive? So I'll get back to you when I feel that.
I'm sure you will, though. Thank you.
Yes.
Vernell, I'll jump to you. And you have a dual business background. So, like, what problems were you trying to solve when you started either or both of your businesses?
So before I opened my bakery, I had opened a daycare. So originally when I opened the daycare, I simply wanted to create a space where kids could be safe and they can simply enjoy being where they are and they can learn. The daycare is not open now. I now own the bakery. And I simply wanted to focus on the life skill of baking and being in the kitchen. We all know, we need to know how to cook to some capacity. We all know we need to know how to function in a kitchen. And those are life skills, simply reading, comprehending, being able to function. And so in a kitchen setting, excuse me. So that's really what I wanted to focus on. And I also wanted to show young kids that they too can be creative. They too can go ahead and have a passion and really focus on their passion and impact other people and other kids around them as well.
That's beautiful. Thank you. And Marie, how about you? You spoke a little bit in the intro, but
when I was at Albany Med, I was very involved with the Northeast Kidney Foundation. My very, very best friend, Carol LaFleur, was the CEO and president. God rest her soul. And so it was a lot of volunteer work, and I was just very passionate about that. And the reason is that we were in the community. We would go to different fairs, doing blood pressures and checking for finger stick for glucose, and just constantly what it would take to prevent kidney disease, because it does affect our community. It affects the Black community in a very profound way. So when I started a business, I wanted to work more with non-for-profit organization, meaning providing centerpieces at a very minimum price, or even donating, just so those foundations could make money and do the things what they do in our community to serve. And so that was one of the things I enjoy. I sponsor here the Albany Youth Soccer Program each fall and spring because my kids grew up playing soccer. I sponsored a movie night. So my own thing, it was just giving back to the community. When I started this business, it was a thing for rap and go. My oldest, who's a financial planner, would say to me, "Mom, you're just going to be selling flowers. You can't be in a business just selling flowers." And I thought, I get it, but I'm not trying to make money. I've done my 30 years. I've had my, pension put away. Well, more than one, but I just want to serve. I want to be able to give. So, and I still want to be able to give, and I still give. So that was one of the purpose. I wanted to be seen in the community, and I wanted to make an impact and a change, whichever way, it may be. I put flowers outside my shop. Folks would walk by. We have a lot of walkers, and you should see just the look and the expression on your face. I mean, they're not thinking about buying flowers, because dinner and whatever costs a little. But the fact that they could get a bouquet that probably is going to last 5 days, I don't know, 3 days, it brings that emotional feeling. And I enjoy that. I really do.
That's awesome. And I said earlier, I don't know if everyone was on, I got one of your arrangements from my mother earlier, and it definitely brightened my day. So, don't dismiss the little things. Flowers can mean a lot. And Dr. Brown, you touched on this a little bit in your intro, but maybe even over and above your bookstore, what problems were you trying to solve in any of your endeavors?
Well, first, Tamika, feel free to call me Santarvis. I appreciate the doctor thing, but Santarvis is fine. So for me as an educator, I mean, not just in the higher ed space, but having been a K-12 teacher and a principal, the fact that we were banning books, and some of those books that were instrumental to my own development and my own, infusion of self-worth and identity, it was a problem for me. So I got in the space of something's got to be done. And then I met the former owner of the banned bookshop in London, actually, while I was there lecturing in Oxford. And we had, developed a conversation, developed a rapport. And he was like, I got something I want you to look at. And then we looked at it, and the rest was history. And that's kind of the problem that I wanted to solve, because I think that those books matter. Those sources of identity and inspiration matter. One of the first places as children we learn to appreciate our identity is through books and reading. And the imagination develops that way. So for me, that was a problem that we were solving.
And thank you for solving it, because it's very, very needed right now. I didn't know you had that. I'm going to go to you. I need that website. sir?
I'll send it to you.
Okay, please do. I'm going to jump to Renelle now. When I look about your story and read about you, I think about pivoting. I think about creativity. You have some of my most favoriteest treats. But you built one business out of necessity and another out of passion. How do you balance practical survival with creative joy as an entrepreneur?
That's a great question, by the way. So I really do enjoy that question. The balance can be challenging at times. However, for me, it really boils down to my morals and values. I thoroughly enjoy what I do, and I thoroughly enjoy it because I'm able to be creative and I'm able to show my creative artistic way. Artistic, excuse me, skills. And luckily, it tastes good and it looks good. So, so I'm able to show it that way. But when I'm able to express my creativity more and more and so on through my business, I enjoy customers walking in when they're coming to pick up a cake and seeing their facial expressions. It's a scary moment for me. To this day, I've been baking for years. I still get nervous every time a customer walks in, to pick up their cake, because I know that what I'm showing them, what they're going to bring to their special occasion, it's going to add joy, and I want to make sure that I was able to give that to them and show them just a little piece or add joy to their celebration. So, being able to balance the two, to be honest, having my passion, that fuels me, and I just continue to be creative as much as I can, because I realize that my customers love it, the community loves it, so why not continue to be as creative as possible, and that pushes my business to continue to thrive in the community. So yeah.
Awesome. And what a blessing to be able to make money while living in your passion and operating in your creativity. So,
absolutely. It's wonderful. I'm blessed to be able to be in this position where it doesn't feel like work for me, to be honest. I walk in my shop, and to this day, when I walk in, I say, "Good morning, sunshine." And I'm talking to my shop because the shop gives me sunshine. It really, really does. So, and it just helps me balance between, and I know you have the survival of operating a business, but I truly believe if my passion continues to fuel my creativity, then that's going to give me the push to continue to be as successful as I possibly can with my business.
That's awesome. When we talk about businesses, we know that support is really important, and not just support when you open the business for people, being patrons of your business, but as you're building the business as well. And so this is for any of you who would like to answer this question, one or two of you. What kind of support made the biggest difference for you? Was it access to capital support, mentorship, visibility, promotion, contracts, community? When you think about the support that you received as you were building your business, what kind of support made the biggest difference?
I'm going to answer that one briefly. So my community, and I have so many different community. I live in Pine Hills. I started out in front of my home, actually, when it was COVID, and folks would come over and buy flowers because we were going through such a period. And so I think when you give good service, because you have good products. For example, someone would call and said, "I would like a centerpiece at 677. At 8 o'clock is dinner, but you're closed at 7." So you make it happen, just like your centerpiece. Your mom said, and she said, "Oh, she got there early." So that's the service. People love service, and you always give a little bit more than they expect. And of course, a little bit more flowers won't hurt, but I think service is what really drives it. And then people comes back. A lot of repeat customers for me or clients, and a lot of referrals. And of course, my Google is very high. It just went up from 4.7 to a 4.8. And people like that. They love to see that.
That's awesome. So you're saying community gave you your biggest support. I can definitely
Yeah, I believe so. Yes.
agree with that. Anytime we talk about flowers, you're the first name that comes up in every room that I'm in. So that's just a testament to how community supports you. Anyone else want to grab that question? What support was most meaningful to you or made the biggest difference as you were building?
I'll answer, Tamika. And for me, I would say community as well, because, what motivated me to even move forward with the purchase was talking to my community, talking to my church community, my fraternity community, and family, just, understanding that there was a need for this, and then reassuring my own self that this was a need that was within my purview to meet. Because sometimes when we see needs out there as entrepreneurs, we want to tackle the world, when sometimes we don't have to tackle the world. We could just tackle that one issue, and that one issue will help us change the world, not tackle it.
Love that. Anyone else? Well, good. I will stay with you, Santarvis. I want to say Dr. Brown, but I'll oblige.
You can say whichever you prefer. You're not obligated to, but whichever makes you happy. Go ahead.
I just love saying doctor, Your work is at the intersection of equity and leadership development. So from your vantage point, in both higher education, nonprofit leadership, and even business ownership, where do you see the biggest systemic barriers to Black entrepreneurship? And then also, what would true transformation look like?
I guess I do have to be Dr. Brown to answer a loaded question like that.
See?
Okay. Well, honestly, I think the first part would be the barrier is ourselves. And I say that because a lot of times we have what we need. We have the innovation, we have the charisma, we have the idea. It's just about having the courage to put yourself out there. I think it was Miss Turner that just spoke about the nervousness that she gets anytime someone comes to pick up a cake, because you're putting yourself out there. And I think because of the society that we've lived in, we have been conditioned to think that in putting yourself out there, if you're not accepted, that's the end of the story. And I've suffered from that before, I think, in various parts of my life. But I had to come to the point where saying, okay, if I put myself out there, Daniel may not accept it, but Tamika might. And so it's putting down that barrier of self-deflection because we're afraid of rejection. And then I think the biggest way to transform that is helping us see value in our ideas again. For example, I love food trucks. And when I go to a food truck, I love to talk to the food truck owner, because 9 times out of 10, to me, the food truck owner is going to tell you they didn't have a business plan before they started. They didn't have capital. They didn't have, a commercial, fryers on the back. No, they had an idea and a passion. And they thought that their fish sandwiches or their pork chop sandwiches were going to be were fire, and they needed to share them with the world. And that's what happened. And I think that we are so bombarded sometimes by the process that we negate the real process. And that's the innovation. That's the courage for the innovation and the implementation that will get us to that point. And along that process, development occurs, not just on the business, but on the business owner.
Yeah. I think that's great. And I think that's a great segue even into the trauma conversation. When I did my first series on trauma and entrepreneurship, so many people reached out and was like, I never thought about trauma and entrepreneurship, but trauma manifests in our personal lives. It's unreasonable to think that it doesn't manifest in other areas, right? And a lot of times trauma shows up like in some of the ways that I said in the intro, our aversion to risk, our unwillingness to rest, our not wanting to put our baby, which is our business, very often in front of people because we don't like rejection. So I would love to hear from each of you about how your personal story, even the hard parts, right, influenced how you run your business or your organization.
I'll start. I I suffered from caring what people think,
Mm.
and that's good within reason, but it's also bad within reason because sometimes it limited me. My wife is an entrepreneur as well. She has a purse line. And so I've been working with her and motivating her and supporting her. And so she finally had her purse launch party. I was so excited. So, being the supportive husband and the class clown that I am, of course, I walked in the door modeling one of each of the purse styles of the purse. I had my little crossbody on, and so she looked at me with horror in her eyes, and she's like, "Take that stuff off." And I'm like, no, I need to let the people know it look good on me. So if it look good on me and what I got going on, it's gonna look real good on them. And I'll never forget one of the ladies who came to the event told her, no, he doesn't need to take it off. He's free.
Mm.
And that was a powerful moment. And now that helped her get a little freer.
Yeah.
Where, look, the reality is, and I'm sure all of my colleagues on this panel will attest to this, some people gonna buy, some people are not.
Mm-hmm.
But you should never get bogged down by the people who don't buy, that you negate the creativity and the innovation to market to those who will.
That's awesome. Anyone else want to touch on that one?
I will. I want to say about 4 years ago, I really stopped separating my lived experience from my leadership.
That's good.
My lived experience is part of who I am. I can't drop it off. I can't do anything with it, but navigate my life with it. And so I also know what it feels like to navigate the trauma. I know what it feels like to have anxiety. I know what it feels like to carry responsibility very early. I said this in my opening, and I know what it feels like to be underestimated. Because of that, I lead with both accountability and compassion. And I feel like when we work with people, we don't know what they went through. So instead of asking what happened to you or what's wrong with you, we're asking what happened, and that changes the dynamic greatly. But at YW, we are trauma informed, not because it sounds good on paper, but because we understand what it means to be in survival mode and still expect to perform. It's also why I care about systems so much, is because trauma is personal and it's also structural, just like racism, just like housing instability. So my leadership is shaped in belief that we can hold a high standard and hold people accountable with dignity. And I don't believe in savior leadership. So I believe in building spaces where women can see their own power and speak to it. So that is what we do at YW.
Yeah. And you touched on a core principle in trauma-informed practice, and that is shifting the question from what's wrong with you to what happened to you. And
Absolutely.
also from my personal experience and working with so many different businesses, what I found is that our lived experience, traumatic or otherwise, uniquely positions us in certain industries and certain rooms. And so I think you're a beautiful testament to that. Thank you so much for sharing
Thank you so much.
part of your story. Anyone else want to touch on that? This time is going by so fast.
I know.
I will. When I started out, my councilwoman in my area said, the neighborhood was not going to work out. It's quiet, residential. So I got put in a farmer's market. And I won't say too much about what farmer's market, but I had hell. It was bad. I mean, the guy would put me on the opposite side each week. And, I'm a woman of faith. And I always think that everything happens for a reason. And I was not going to give up. And so folks would come that way where you would set me into the market. And I think one of the reason why, he gave me such a hard time. Again, I think one of the reasons I would go there with 14 big buckets of flowers, and they would all sold. I mean, I was selling. I was really making money, and he didn't like that. So he wanted me out of the market, and I said, absolutely not. See, I was raised by a military man. My dad, God rest his soul, Eric Moncrief, and he raised us where you have to have perseverance and resilient, and you don't give up. If it's a good fight, you're going to fight it. And I was not going to give up. So you try to kick me out. And I had brought a check for $600 for both markets, and the one in Albany and the one in Guildhall. And I don't want to say too much. You see, I get a little choked up. And I tried to explain to him that I'm not just a woman that sells flowers, and I'm not your typical Black woman, because while some of us would walk away, and I'm not someone who like confrontation, but again, it's just in my gene, it's in my DNA, it's in my blood, and I wasn't going to just walk away because I have made up my mind that I was not going back to nursing, and this was going to be it. So I know some folks. Let's just put it that way. I've lived in Albany for 45 years. I'm very involved in my community. And so when things got resolved, he tried everything. In Guilderland, it was a little different as well, because you have to remember, this was COVID. This was rioting. This was people getting shot, people getting killed. And here I am as a Black woman, in the middle of almost nowhere in a parking lot. But I don't get intimidated easily by folks, and I knew my right, and I knew I was not going to go that way. I was going to take it to the next level. So I did hire an attorney, because I felt I had rights. So at the end of the day, I think building this was built on just true resilient belief, that my faith by God put me in that area for a reason. And so, I had said to my son, I really want to liquidate some of my pension. And he said, he's the finance guy. He said, absolutely not. You're going to try a pop-up, which would be the fundraiser, the farmers market. So in any way, my neighbor would say to me when I come back and load in my car with an empty bucket, she said, how did it go? And she said, Maria, I'm just going to tell you something. You're going through this because God has bigger plans for you. And I really honestly believe it. And look at me now. It's not a brag. I'm just saying, for those folks who feel like they're coming against obstacle or distraction, you can't give in. You can't give up, especially when you believe in something, especially when you believe. I had a professor told me I would never make it in nursing. Okay, I have my bachelor's in nursing. So again, you never make it with this flower shop. Here I am. So for those who are listening, don't ever give up on your dream, on your passion, because the more you put in, it's the more you're going to get out. And I've raised 4 kids as a single parent. All my 4 kids are college graduate. Okay, Lemoyne, Siena, Syracuse. My daughter went to Hudson Valley. She's currently at SUNY. My point is, you can't give in. And that's the dad that I had. He was a military guy, but he was a musician. He had principles, and he had morals, and he had ethic, and standards is what he taught us. High standard. Never lower yourself for someone else, or never give in because someone else feel you don't belong to that table. And so again, keep at it, chip at it, keep going at it. Don't give in. Don't give up.
And that's a beautiful segue to my question. We're going to have one last question, and I'm going to combine them because I think that you all can handle it. But my next question really was, I think we all have this moment, particularly as business owners, where you want to give up. Something happens, some obstacles, some letdown, some disappointment, and you want to give up. And so I'd love to hear from you, and this is going to be in round robin fashion in a couple sentences or less. What moment nearly made you stop? We all can remember that one moment where you were like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. What moment nearly made you stop And then what made you keep going? And Miss Marie, we heard loud and clear from you. So thank you for that story. I'm going to jump to Renelle on this one. What moment almost made you stop, and why did you keep going?
Uh, I would have to say, I had a moment where, when I first opened the bakery, I had the bakery and also the daycare going at the same time. Which I loved both businesses, but I realized that I really wanted to put more energy and effort into the bakery. So I went ahead and made the difficult decision to close the daycare so I can really focus on the bakery. When I did that, I came across, and I'm not going to specifically say any particular names, but I had some moments where people did not take me serious. I was too young. I was flat out too that I don't look like a baker, and I don't know what a baker looks like, but I guess I didn't look like a baker. So and also, I had people that did not believe in children should know or have the skill set of baking, of being in the kitchen, and so on. So, and I went ahead and I still kept going because I truly believe that it was something that it was a passion. You have this like burning feeling inside your stomach that once you have a vision, it is your vision. It is your job to push through and really follow through on that passion. And the vision is for you to figure out how to get there, how to get to that finish line. And so I had to really dig down deep and just say to myself, you're going to do this regardless. So, I had a moment where I actually applied for a business loan, and I did not get approved because bakeries are actually deemed to be high risk. So I did not have any financial backing for my business up until I want to say about 2 years ago. Everything was funded through these little hands. So there was those moments where I wanted to just step away. But I truly believe that when God gives you a vision, it is your responsibility to push through that vision and for you to show people what that vision is and why God chose you to push through with that vision.
Thank you for that. Anyone else want to touch on that?
I can. When I first started YW in the capacity of executive director / CEO, it was the leadership that almost had me ready to throw in just like, this is enough. Like, I went through COVID, going through what we're all experiencing now with the federal government, but it was something about leadership of an organization that was dedicated to eliminating racism and empowering women that I could not sit with not having that from above me. And I had to remember my proximity to the women and children that I am dedicated to uplifting. I had to remember who I was and not needing approval or empowerment from anyone other than my community, the people who were uplifting me, my mentors, just my community uplifting me. So that was that moment of like, how can I give up something that I'm dedicated to, something that I have lived through and want to structurally make better? I can't allow anyone that is speaking negative or down towards me in my new role, first time CEO, executive director. I know what my passion was. I knew what my mission was and how to uphold that. I wasn't going to allow anybody else to do it. So my proximity and my dedication to the work that I do kept me going, but I was very close to letting it all go based off of naysayers or whatever we want to call them that was above me and not doing what I felt was in their job duty to support and uplift me. So
What I hear from all of you is that we all have had those moments, but you're so glad that you pushed through them. And
absolutely.
I can definitely say the community is so glad for each and every one of you pushing through those moments as well. We're going to get ready to open it up for Q&A. And as we kind of put up those questions, we have Connor and Jason here to help facilitate that. So as they're gathering, do we have any questions so far? And if not, I have one. Oh, go ahead. Do you want to go, Daniel?
I was going to ask a question, but if you have another one, Tamika, you're welcome to do that.
I have one for the panelists, and this is a test, guys. This is a quiz because you get 2 sentences for this answer. Okay, this is a round robin. Star said, I know it's tough, but as we're gathering the Q&A, I'd like for you all to leave our audience with a nugget, a gem, if you will. So if there was one thing that you could impart to the next generation of Black entrepreneurs, what is it? What should they know?
I would tell them, build your skill so deeply that your confidence becomes structural, not emotional.
Ooh, that's good. That sounds like my next TikTok.
I would say ask questions, read, take advantage of the community offering as far as like if there's classes and so on, and make sure you're financially stable.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
Meaningful. Everything should have a meaningful purpose. You should never build your business on just 1%, 20%. And let me explain it. Have more than 20% of your client, meaning for me, it's out of town, my neighbors, my community, and it just goes on and on. Because if you miss more than 20%, it can really affect your business. So build it with a variety of choices. So 20% of something would not affect your business because you still have 80% that's coming in, and put in the work. If you put in the work and be persistent, don't do 24 hours today and stay home tomorrow in bed. Be consistent and put the hard work in because it really, really does pay off. And follow your faith, leap in faith.
That's awesome. Centaurus?
Be bold enough to come up with something that will scare you enough to make you think you can't do it, while having a support system around you that will show you how you have to do it because the world is counting on you to do it.
These are some awesome nuggets. We're recording this, right, Daniel? I need to watch it.
Absolutely, yes. And we'll promote the recording so that more people can learn from you.
So we can go right into the Q&A. Do we have any questions?
So I do have a question that I'd like to ask. And I see that we have one in the Q&A space. One of the emphasis, and you touched indirectly on it, Tamika, and in your responses, panelists, the concept of failure, right? If you look at statistics about entrepreneurship, right, the first thing that you see is 75% of new businesses fail, right? And then on the other end, we hear often that failure is an opportunity for growth, right? That failure is not the end, but part of the process. But still, failure has, if we define it that way, right, it has an impact, an effective impact, a physical impact, a cognitive impact. I'm really curious about, the inspiration that you have shared, the leadership that you role model. I mean, it's just so special to have you here today and to hear your story and your insight. How do you define failure, and how have you leveraged it to be where you are today?
I'll start, Daniel. For me, I didn't fail. I
Mhm.
just didn't succeed at that time.
That's good.
Timing is everything. Sometimes opportunities are not for you at that time, but they come later. And
Mhm.
so whenever someone asks me, you failed, I didn't fail. I just didn't succeed. Isn't
Mhm.
it the same thing? No, not by far.
Yeah.
It's completely different. And looking at it that way will make the difference for you or anyone.
I would like to chime in. Um, I to me, failure is not trying. That's when you can say I failed because you didn't try. If you tried, you at least have the experience of what was not successful for you, and you can try it again. And then, as far as how did failure help or shape, as far as in my business, to be honest, I talk about my failures. I'll say, "Oops, this cake didn't come out right," and I'll really show my imperfections to let people know that, you can have moments of not completing something that it didn't turn out the way you wanted it to be, but does not mean that you cannot succeed or cannot, complete whatever you need to. So I put it out there, I let people know, and here it is. And people really take to that, and they see you as more personable, and they realize, like, okay, it's okay to not to fail or not complete something thoroughly all the way through, but at least I tried. So
I had a mentor who shared with me that failure is just another opportunity to show you how or when to do something a different way. And it completely shifted my mindset on failure. It was like, oh no, to Centaurus's point, it's like, no, I just got to do it a different way. I just didn't succeed that way. There is no failure. Isn't that Yoda who says that? There's no
Yeah.
failure. Yeah.
Um, Failure to me is it's God's plan. That's his plan. Timing. And you learn from that experience. And from that experience, it gives you preparation.
Mhm.
And from preparation, it makes you ready for the next step.
Mhm.
You can't look at the negative. You have to learn from what went wrong. I always say, this is my own philosophy or plan in life is you plan A, B, and C. And if you have to go to B, then you really didn't plan A well. And if you went to C, then you didn't have a good plan. So reevaluate it
Mhm.
next time.
Failure for me would, as a former perfectionist, look, I'm trying. Um, it was very uncomfortable for me, but failure, I think the other panelists have said it great. It's another opportunity to do better. And I remember when I was going for the role as executive director, um, prior to the amazing DeQuetta running YW, I went for the position and I knew I did horribly in the interview, but it was just a testament to the things that, one, I still didn't know, two, that it gave me the opportunity to now be mentored by DeQuetta in this role. And I feel that 7 years between DeQuetta coming and staying, I've gained so much understanding, competency of a budget sheet to going through and obtaining my MBA. I understand wholeheartedly the importance, the love, the dedication of running an organization, but a historic organization that is dedicated to eliminating racism and empowering women. It just gave me that full understanding that I may have taken advantage of, or not really holding with grace and delicacy as it should. The opportunity to get myself right and to do better, to be better for the 105 women and over 50 children we serve daily.
That's beautiful. Kenner, do we have any other questions from attendees?
Yeah, I have one more question. Being an entrepreneur can lead to long days and long weeks, and obviously, as a lot of sacrifice goes into that as well. So real quick, we could just go around and everybody could say just a quick note about how you balance your personal life with your entrepreneurial life and the work that goes into that.
I will go. Learn to say no. There is a saying in YW that we are overly fulfilled. And sometimes we just don't have the time to go to meetings. Sometimes we don't have the time to celebrate with our colleagues in other organizations for other events or anything else. So, for instance, when we are in grant mode, we need dollars in YW, and they need to be diversified. Therefore, that means Jamie and I, my chief development officer, we're looking for money, and we're making our appointments based on that. But strategically, we are doing what we need to do to uplift YW so that we're not dependent financially heavily on federal grants and stuff. So right now I'm sorry, it sounds amazing, but I don't have that. I'm overly fulfilled right now. Is there another time that this can happen? But right now, saying no has been at the top of my priority list, not because it's not good things that are happening in the community, but my role is to make sure that YWCA is sustainable in doing what we say we do, and that's to eliminate racism and empower women.
I'll piggyback on that. Learning to say no and remembering in your saying no that it's not a bad thing, because innovation has the word in, not out. So you can't be empty and be innovative. You have to take time to refill and refuel.
Love that.
On that. No, learn to say no. So this week was tough. It was 3, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock nights, and then you're up again and you're here. It was Valentine's and the caucus and 2 funerals, and it was hard. But again, when you have a passion for it, and my son always say process and procedure, and there's just some things that you can do and some things you can't do, but it was tough. And in the midst of, as you heard the noise going off, that was DoorDash. We had like 15 orders on DoorDash and we canceled 10. Couldn't keep up with 15. I'm not going to just drop flowers in a vase and send it out. So we canceled 10 and we did 5, and the shop was full, and the website, we turned it down. We turned it off for a day and opened it back up, and we were happy. But that was my no. Cancel DoorDash. Sorry.
Yeah, it's important to know your limits. It took me a while to find out what is my limits as far as orders. And so now for me, I know, okay, once I get to a certain amount of orders for the weekend or for the week, I go ahead and, turn, my website off, or you're not able to place an order for a certain amount of time, because I want to make sure that the orders that I do have, that I'm giving my all and my quality work, to those orders. So you have to be okay with saying no, and you're not saying no forever. You're just saying, I am not at the capacity. I don't have the capacity, at this moment to fulfill that order. And that's okay. And orders will still be there when you turn your website or whatever back on.
Yeah, the balance of no. But
Tamika,
I know. Yeah.
would you mind answering the question and then closing our panel?
Want me to answer the question? What I have learned, I have a very demanding quote unquote day job as well as my own business. And I'm also a co-founder of a foundation. That the balance is in that sometimes the day job gets 90% and my business gets 10%. And sometimes my business gets 90% and the day job gets 10%. And it's also about inserting grace. You know, we often give grace to a lot of other people and then we don't give it to ourselves. But my heart is clear. I'm clear on God's will for my life. I listen to Him first. And when I need to say no, I say it, and I insert grace for myself. And because of that, because I create that atmosphere of grace, people give it back to me. And so, you know, give yourself grace. Some days you're not going to get it all right. But, you know, as long as you keep moving, clarity comes with motion. And then you can just get better and better every day. So that's the balance, is that there is no balance. But, you know, as long as you're firm and fixed in what you're doing, it just keeps on moving. So this has been an excellent conversation. Daniel, thank you again for having me. I know it goes by so quick because I have about 20 other questions to ask. So we'll have to do a part 2, Daniel. So I don't know if you can make that happen. But as we close, I just want to pause and say thank you to each of you on the panel. Thank you for your transparency. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for building when it would have been easier to sit still. Thank you for your yes, even when the system said no. Your stories are not just stories, they're blueprints, and they are indeed proof, and they're permission. And to everyone watching, this conversation does not end here. If something stirred in you today, that is not coincidence, that is calling. Supporting Black entrepreneurship is not about a moment, it's about a decision. It is a practice. And if you're an entrepreneur watching, please hear me. You are not behind. You are not disqualified. You are not too late. Your lived experience is not a liability. It is leverage. God wastes nothing, not the trauma, not the detours, not the seasons that stretched you, not the no's that redirected you. Everything can be redeemed. Everything can be repurposed. So don't just leave inspired, leave committed. And remember, resilience is not accidental. It is cultivated, and so is community. So thank you all for being part of cultivating both. It's been an honor to be your moderator today, and have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll turn it over to Daniel.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Tamika, and thank you, Renelle, Starletta, Cervantes, and Marie. I'm going to take advantage of Zoom and ask you to look at yourself in the image that you see in front of you. And I want you to know the 4 of you, what an inspiration you are. Your leadership, your courage, your insight. And you were just talking about how busy you are, and you're here. So Excelsior University, the Center for Social Justice, we are very appreciative of you and of your willingness to share your story and your amazing accomplishments with us. Consider Excelsior University a home. I think we're going to do part 2, Tamika. I heard you, and we want to continue learning from you. And everyone, it's an opportunity for all of us to support our local businesses and the work of these amazing leaders in the community in any way we can. As Tamika mentioned, it's a calling, and it should turn into a commitment, not just an inspiration. So thank you, everyone. Happy Black History Month. Support Black entrepreneurs in our community, and looking forward to next time.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.